tonight, the Biden White House, in a very disturbing development out of Washington, D.C., the Biden administration's State Department on Tuesday could be infiltrated by communist about illicit revenue generation for terrorism, Korean and IT workers using tonight freelance PRNN platforms, the gig economy, to fund that country's weapons of mass destruction and ballistic missile program. Yesterday, a symposium was held in San Francisco between the State Department, the Republic of Korea Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Silicon Valley to address this issue. Stopping DPRK sanctions evasions in the IT remote work industry is a major threat to American business. The Biden State Department cited UN estimates that in 2022, North Korea brought in $1 billion in cyber currency. On Tuesday, State and Treasury sanctioned the 3 entities involved with this: the Pyongyang University of Automation, the Technical Reconnaissance Bureau, and the 110th Research Center. All North Korean entities that are involved in this insidious scheme. In the press releases, it was revealed that the Pyongyang University of Automation feeds graduates directly to the nation's Reconnaissance General Bureau. The Technical Reconnaissance Bureau is involved with a organization insidiously named the Lazarus Group, with just as insidious a function. Last month, they stole $620 million in virtual currency from the Axie Infinity game. 10 years ago, the 110th Research Center launched Dark Soul, a campaign against the Republic of Korea media and financial sectors that wreaked massive damage. This effort also helps to acquire weapons of mass destruction and ballistic missile-related technology, not including funding. These IT workers are typically located in the People's Republic of China and in Russia. Now, it is no surprise that the Korean Peninsula is famous for its information technology and computer acumen. They really know what they're doing. And that is why it shouldn't surprise anyone that some of these workers are bringing in $300,000 a year. But don't think of James Bond here. These are slave laborers working 12 to 16 hours a day. The projects usually involve virtual currency. They use freelance platforms and work for the gig economy. Now, last May, practically 1 year ago, they issued a guidance, also from the Biden White House, concerning DPRK IT workers, and cited them for abuse of the gig economy and social media. Now, for American businesses as much as we deplore the weapons of mass destruction program in the DPRK, as much as we realize ballistic missiles are a threat, your $1 to $5 grand for that project will not make a big difference. And that is not the only reason I'm sharing this. In last year's warnings, the Biden White House warned that this program, deploying these IT workers onto remote platforms, allows them to gain privileged access to companies, opening the door to other DPRK activities. So while your $5,000 for an app may not be that much, this opens the door to them locking down your files in a ransomware attack. Of course, a lot of businesses are aware that the dangers of the gig economy and remote working. And there are security measures in place to prevent this from happening, not just with DPRK, but other bad actors. And if your business uses these services, you need to find out about those. Now, there were a few red flags mentioned in the state and treasury press releases. For example, if you have multiple logins from various IP accounts in different countries in a short period of time, that's a red flag. Quite frankly, it is very hard to be in Japan for breakfast, in England for brunch, in Cape Town for lunch, in Montreal for tea, and in Buenos Aires for dinner. You get the idea. Money transfers are a red flag, especially to banks in China, or even insisting on cryptocurrency. Inconsistencies in the information they give. Just misspellings were mentioned, and this is something you have to watch out for on everything. So just look at their identity information, and then weird hours and contact routines, because these people will not be running a normal schedule. I know entrepreneurs and startups have very tight schedules, but this is going to push the boundaries of weird. And quite frankly, if you get the heebie-jeebies over anybody you're dealing with, don't deal with them. There are enough legitimate contractors out there that you don't have to go with this whoever gives you the willies. So do your due diligence, because this is not just about Pyongyang's ballistic missile program. This is about your files. And this is about a lot of other scary things. Reporting for PRNN News, this is D. Lanier Shook. Please stay tuned for the rest of our broadcasting day. All right. Welcome to Poor Richard News Network Game Show. And this is where we bring you a game that you should play. And we chose it specifically for two reasons. One, this is a game that is easy to make. And two, it's a variation on two other games. To begin with, I started with a checkerboard. It was hard to find a checkerboard. This was $5, obviously, and this was the checkerboard. So chess and Battleship are two games that I'm going to assume you already know about. Therefore, if you don't know about them, stop the video and go find out about chess and Battleship, because this is a combination. The queen in chess will be replaced by a carrier. The same moves. Across the board, same. And the queen sits on her colors. This is a black chess Battleship piece, and it sits on the black piece. That's the Battleship. It's the king. It has the most hits, and the reason being that it can take the most damage. Unlike chess, the goal is not to eliminate the king. Instead of the bishops, we have cruisers. Like the bishops, they can move diagonally across the board. And cruisers are capital ships. In a future broadcast, I will discuss these ships, but for the moment, we'll just discuss the game. Knights are destroyers in this game. And once again, if you don't know how chess is played and how knights move, go look it up. Castles can move directly across the board, and that's why I chose a submarine. Because a submarine, this is not just going to be one, it would be a squadron. So, and as you can see, the submarine has 2 hits, but it can deliver a damage of 3 hits. These are frigates. Frigates are small ships. As you can see, each can take a damage of 2 hits, but they can deal out 3 hits of damage. One is an anti-aircraft frigate, the other is an anti-submarine warfare frigate. So the frigates deal out 2 damage to all ships, but they deal out to submarines or aircraft 3 damage. And once again, I will explain that in another broadcast, but they replace pawns. We have aircraft carriers, so we're changing it up by adding a aviation contingent. These do not sit on the board, they sit behind the board. This is the fighter, the combat air patrol. They can take 1 hit, and they deliver a damage of 2 to airplanes. That's the bombers. They deliver a damage of 2 and can take a hit of 1. These are torpedo bombers. They can take a hit of 1, like the other airplanes, but they deliver a damage of 3. And this is because torpedoes, properly done, are very deadly. And we're going to assume they are properly done. Next, we come to the hit counters. And I've got several options here. One is similar to the ships. Another is similar to the others, but has smoke coming up. And finally, I've got the third one that is taller and has smoke coming up. And these are good, but the problem is that they're hard to put on the square with the ship. And the last one has a terrible time standing up. So that's why I went with these little ones. And what we do is we just drape them over the top of the piece. Now is where we come to a very unique variation on the game. You see, in this game, every time you move, you get a maneuver point. And that applies to this. 1 square will be the home port, and the goal of your enemy is to take the home port. The home port will be where your aircraft carrier is. So Queen sits on her colors. The black side will place it under where the Queen sits. This is a dry dock. If you have a ship that has taken, say, the cruiser beside the destroyer, it can take 3 hits. Well, let's say it's got 2 hits. If you can get it back to the home port and you have 2 maneuver points, you can repair this ship. It will take 2 turns, but you can repair it. And here we see the carrier sitting on top of the home port. These are the little maneuver points, and this is a good time to point out that this is a messy game, design-wise. And at first, I had a few issues with that, personally, because I don't like that. But the more I thought about it, I decided this is good. It shows what I've done. I just took an old checkers board, drew the pieces on cardstock. Actually, they are 3x5 cards. I used a heavier stock, but you can use any. Then I just put them out. And as you can see, I've made up my own rules. All right, so we have the black side set up. And here you can see we put down the home port for the white chess pieces. Of course, they're not chess pieces, they're battleship pieces. Here, before I folded them, I wanted you to see the entire layout for one side. You can see the frigates, the capital ships, the destroyers, the submarines, and the aviation contingent. This is an upper view of the entire setup, and this is just a view of the entire game board setup ready to go. Now, there is another way you can mark damage to your ships, and this is the reason I like this inexpensive way of playing the game. These are just pieces of paper. You can toss them out and replace them. You can mark the hit on the playing piece itself, and that is really, really wonderful. Although if you're going to repair the ship, you might run out of room, so that's a consideration. But that's the game, and that's the setup, and next time we will delve further into the game. I may look into why I chose which vessels to replace the vessels, but I will probably go ahead and play a few rounds of this game just so you can get a feel of why it is so much fun. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for listening.
The dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight last gleaming, whose stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, dimly seen through the mist of the deep, where the foes of your host in dread silence reposes. What is that which the breeze for the towering steep, as it fitfully blows, have concealed half a distance?